Welcome! In front of me is a OPPO Reno 10, and today I'll go over unboxing along with a quick overview. So, before I get started, I will say that I'm just by spec sheet looking at this, disappointed in comparison to the price. So yeah, I'm gonna be probably not very nice to this device because there is a absolute other winner of a device from like China, considering this is Apple, let's be honest, which will outperform and also save you money, which this just kind of becomes a redundant device that I wouldn't recommend getting, but I'll get to that later on. So anyway, let's just get into it. And here we get our case, hopefully. Nope, we don't even get a case. Okay, great. I guess money well spent. We get our device right here. Now I will say, on the pictures, this looks a little bit worse. I don't know if the camera's picking it up. This looks actually pretty nice for at least like the back and also the front. We have a curved display right here, so that's actually something that I really like. And anyway, let's see what else we got in the box. We got a hefty charger. So this is a 67-watt charger. Pretty good. And a cable. And look at that, both of them are included in a box. For still a reasonable price, I'll argue. I might be not very nice to this device, but I cannot miss the fact that this device is still pretty decent and comes included with something that devices that cost 5 times more don't, which is just like a middle finger from other manufacturers to the buyer. So yeah, anyway, let's turn it on. There we go. I was scared that it might be dead, but it's not. So while it's turning on, let's quickly touch upon the build quality right here. So we have a glass front, no surprise here. Then we got a plastic frame. This just looks like apparently metal, but supposedly it's plastic. Yep, that's plastic. And we have also glass back. Though honestly, it feels more like plastic. It's completely the other way around, but whatever. So yeah, plastic frame, glass back apparently. Then at the front with our display, we have a 6.7-inch display, 1080p resolution. It's also an AMOLED display boasting 1 billion colors, 120 Hz refresh rate, HDR10 plus, and a peak brightness of 950 nits. So that being said, the display here is pretty good. I cannot say otherwise. It is pretty decent. We also have a pretty small bezels right here, equating to about 89.6% screen to body ratio, and a pixel density of 294. Now I'm not going to go through the setup, so anyway, let's touch upon the cameras at the back. So we have a triple camera setup, at least something that looks like a triple camera setup. And the main one is a 64 megapixel f1.7 25mm wide lens. Then we got a 32 megapixel f2.0 47mm telephoto lens, PDAF, optical 2x optical zoom, and then below that we have a 8 megapixel f2.2 112 degree ultra wide lens. And with those cameras, at least in terms of recording, you can record at 4K 30 frames and at 1080p 30 and 60, and obviously slow motion as well with 120 and 480. Now at the front, we have a pretty decent lens as well. This is a 32 megapixel at 2.4 22mm wide lens, which allows you to record at 1080p 30 frames, so a little bit of a step down compared to the back one. And moving on to the internals, which I'm not really sure which side to show. Anyway, internals, 5000 mAh battery, 8 GB of RAM, running on Dimensity 7050 processor. And in terms of storage, we're looking at either 128 gigs or 256. With, let's see if we have expandable storage. And we do have also expandable storage. So you can see right here, the bottom side of the tray equates or allows you to put either another SIM card sideways or SD card. So you can get the 128, pop in an SD card and be good to go with that. So that's pretty nice. Now, this would almost sum up the entire device. So there's a couple things that I didn't mention yet. So we do have under display fingerprint sensor, because it's not visible anywhere else, so I just wanted to mention this. And we do have a 67 watt wired charging, power delivery 3, and also can reverse charge. It doesn't really say how quickly it charges, but based on the 67 watts charging speed, I would expect that it's gonna be charged in like 30 minutes up to 60% or something along those lines. So obviously it's pretty good. Now, that being said, having like super stupid charging speeds like 120 in certain cases isn't always the best. It will degrade your battery a little bit quicker. I would consider the 67 to be somewhere of like a sweet spot. It is on the higher side for what I would like to have, but obviously it's really good if you need to top up your device really quickly. So just want to point that out. And last thing that I didn't mention is the Android running on this device is Android 13 with ColorOS 13.1. And that's basically all for this device. Now, for basically all these specs that I mentioned, you will need to fork out about $600 US. And that's where I go back to the beginning of the video, mentioning that I don't consider this device to be worth the money, because POCO F5 Pro exists. And that device is better in every way than this, compared to this one. On top of that, not only is it better, it costs less. Begging the question, why the hell would anybody spend more money on something that is inferior when they can spend less and get something better? Now, to quickly compare these two devices, the POCO F5 Pro against the Reno. In terms of the display, we're looking at basically similar display specs, both having AMOLED displays, though this one has 1 billion colors, while the POCO F5 Pro has 68 billion, whatever. In terms of peak brightness, POCO 1400 nits, so significantly brighter than this. Resolution is 1440 instead of the 1080p. Corner Gorilla Glass 5 instead of whatever the heck we have right here, which isn't even really specified. Also running on Android 13. In terms of internals, we're looking at a bigger battery of 5160, so just 160 milliamps more. At the very base, you get 8 gigabytes of RAM, which costs less, while having at the very lowest end more storage, because the device starts with 256 gigabytes of storage and goes up to 512, while also running on faster storage type. Again, all better specs. That being said, also the processor in that POCO is significantly better, being Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. It's not the fastest processor on the market now, but it's literally just a single generation behind, and it is the flagship processor for Androids. There is, if we remove the current gen that the S23 Ultras I think have, there is nothing better on the market really. It's the same processor that is being used in the Fold 4, just to point that out. So it is really fast basically. Continuing down, in terms of cameras, we do have 64 as our main shooter, which is basically the same. Then we get a 8 megapixel ultra wide and 2 megapixel macro. Now this is kind of where it falls apart. The main shooter is basically the same, but the two other ones, the 8 megapixel ultra wide, falls behind. Compared to the this one also has an 8 megapixel ultra wide, but it does have also a 32 megapixel telephoto lens, while the POCO just comes with like the garbage sticker camera 2 megapixel macro. So yeah, that's the only kind of drawback. But with that being said, the 64 megapixel main shooter can shoot at 8K 24 frames compared to this one maxing out at 4K 30. While at 4K, the POCO can shoot at 30 and 60 frames, so you get nice buttery smooth recordings at 4K, and obviously at 1080p it still outperforms it. Now the front and POCO, the front lens is only 16 megapixel compared to this one having a 32. And yeah, that's basically it. Now, that being said, there's a couple things that I'm going to also mention. It also has under display fingerprint sensor like this device does, and in terms of charging speed, it also comes with a 67 watt charger, same as this one. Power delivery 3.0, same as this one. And the charging speeds here are advertised that gets your device to 50% in 15 minutes. Pretty insane. Now, one thing that this device doesn't have that the POCO does is a 30 watt wireless charging. Now, that is quite bonkers in terms of charging speed for wireless, so keep that in mind. And advertised 50% in 32 minutes. Again, pretty good specs right here. And now for the basically the cherry on top is the price. Keep in mind that this device costs about $600, or actually no, $700, my bad. $700. POCO comes at $470. I'm just gonna leave that moment of silence here so everyone can compete. That the POCO is significantly cheaper while performing significantly better specs, I would argue. So yeah, with that being said, if you're looking for the device, a new device, I would strongly recommend staying away from this one, because you'd overpay for it while not really getting your money's worth. Now, like I said, this is probably one of the best options right now in the market, being the POCO F5 Pro. For the money, you get a stupidly good device. It's almost unfair to any kind of competition. This is, at the moment, I would argue, one of the best value for the money devices that I have seen in a long time, and really doesn't have much of a competition from anyone. So I will probably be going to this device for quite some time as alternative to majority of these mid-range devices, and also like some of the high-end devices, because Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 is a flagship grade device that is being sold in devices like the soon to be replaced Fold 4, which costs, what is it, $1,600 or $1,800, while the POCO costs like less than $500. So yeah, I will probably be going to this quite a lot because it's such a banger of a device. Now, with that being said, hopefully you found this video helpful. Hopefully I made you just kind of look at this device if you were planning to pick it up and reconsider with a better option. So if you found that helpful in any kind of way, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.